Hello, and welcome to the What You Need to Know About HTML5 presentation. My name is Serge Abelard. I'm an e-learning developer with Kineo US. I've been in the industry for about 5 years, focusing on development work. So, what is HTML5? Well, let's start with what is HTML, basically. HTML is hypertext markup language. It defines the way we see things on the web. So it turns text, code, into a visual representation. Obviously, we all use the internet, and we know how it looks and feels and acts. HTML is the language that's behind that. HTML5 is the 5th iteration of HTML. So just like software programs like Microsoft Windows has different versions, HTML has different versions. HTML5 combines several technologies. So when we talk about HTML5, we're not only talking about the HTML5 language itself, we're talking about CSS, JavaScript, and jQuery, things of that nature. Web languages that we've all heard the names of before. CSS3, it defines how we lay things out on the screen. JavaScript is a scripting language similar to HTML5. It's a language that defines how things function, but it allows you to do more than HTML5 alone does. Probably about 50% of the top 10,000 viewed websites in the world use JavaScript. So it's widely used. You see it all the time. jQuery is a collection of JavaScript files, so it's essentially a JavaScript library. That's what jQuery is. But when we talk about HTML5 going forward here, referring to all these things that are kind of combined. The good thing about HTML5 is that it's backwards compatible. So if you've got older courses or any kind of web content that was developed in the past, it will still function with HTML5. So if you want to use some newer kind of functions and features of HTML5 in an older type of website, you can do that. You can mix the two. One thing to note here is that we hear that HTML5 is the Flash killer. But no, HTML5 and Flash are two different technologies. So labeling it as a Flash killer or replacement is not necessarily accurate right now. Only a small portion of the HTML5 technology is what could be thought of as a Flash replacement. For example, Flash, it does things better than HTML5, and it does some things worse. It's a different technology, so we don't want to label HTML5 as a Flash killer. Key features of HTML5, it features integrated APIs. So video, audio, offline apps, drag and drops, geolocation, things of that nature. It allows you to integrate those things in HTML5 themselves. To insert video before, you would use Flash. To insert audio before, you might use some kind of shockwave player, QuickTime, something of that nature. But with HTML5, all that functionality is integrated, so you don't necessarily have to use third-party applications. Offline apps is really exciting. You can kind of create things that are saved to a machine, so a user can potentially, in this situation, go through a course offline, and then when they get back online, that reporting can be sent back. Just one example. Drag and drop functionality is included, which is great. It allows you to create those drag and drops that we all love in the e-learning world without using something like Flash. And then geolocation, obviously, apps now on smartphones are using that all the time to kind of determine where you are, and you can do a lot with that. I've seen one good example of that with e-learning where it detects your location and then presents a different course language-wise. So it'll detect your location, say, hey, you're in China, we're going to give you this traditional Chinese version of the course, or if you're in Mexico, we'll give you the Spanish version of the course. So it allows you to do more dynamic kind of things. Form elements are a great thing inside of HTML5, creating date and color pickers. Also form validation. So before, when you had people filling out forms or entering their name, email address, things of that nature, it was kind of difficult to make sure those things were formatted correctly, or the people actually typed in real values instead of just putting in dummy information. Now that kind of functionality is built in, it's a lot easier to do that. So if you have an email address field, you can require the user to enter the @ symbol, things of that nature. Number steppers, we've seen those in, once again, smartphones and applications. So when you're looking to insert your birth date or something, you can kind of flip through a wheel to pick a number instead of just having to type it in. Canvas for images, that's one of the biggest features, or the most talked about features for HTML5. It's the fact that you can draw images on the screen and manipulate them via code. You can do things you couldn't do before, especially with shadows, borders, and all kinds of things. So you can draw an object via code and have it interact with other objects or other things on the screen, all within HTML5, which is exciting and provides for some pretty good things. Vector graphics. So HTML5 supports the use of vector graphics, which is good for all of us out there who are worried about creating content that looks good on different devices, different sizes. And the basic difference between vector images and bitmap images. Bitmap images are things we're used to seeing on the web, JPEGs, graphics that when you scale them up, they start to look pixelated. But with vector graphics, they scale nicely. They look the same. It's small or large, so that's a good benefit there. Another key feature is that HTML5 is easily editable. So in the past, let's say you had a course in Flash and you wanted to edit it, you would have to go into Flash. You'd have to have the whole Adobe Flash program, open it up, change some text or whatever you wanted to edit, publish it out, publish it back on the web. With HTML5, you can simply open a page without having to worry about using a program like Flash. You can open it with something like Notepad, edit it, save, post it back out, and you're done. Another great feature is that it supports multiple platforms, and it tends to look similar on these different platforms. So one of the reasons why we need it is because we've got some heat coming from people at Microsoft and some other corporations that are starting to say, hey, we're not going to allow Flash in our browsers anymore. We want to make friendly browsers that work on all our different devices and don't require plugins. So as these browser companies start to create browsers that do not support outside plugins, none of your Flash content will work. Kenya, we've got a guide on our website that talks a little bit about creating a plan and getting ready for this HTML5 conversion, because some of the browser manufacturers have threatened in recent times that to not support plugins anymore. Also, increased web access via mobile devices. So now we have a lot of people taking courses on their tablets and their phones, and now tablets and phones at this point, the majority of them do not support Flash. Does this mean Flash is dead? Like I said earlier, no, Flash is not dead. Maybe in 5 to 10 years the Flash Player plugin will be dead, but the folks at Adobe are smart people. They know where the industry's heading. The development tool Flash is not dead, and I don't think will ever die. But the web, kind of as we know it, is changing. Here are some statistics on Flash. Just put this here just to kind of point out that we are using Flash right now. A lot of people are using Flash. A lot of companies are relying on Flash, a lot of applications, and it is installed on millions of devices. So don't get too scared yet. If you're working in an organization where maybe you're a little bit behind on the updates for browsers and things of that nature, you may be fine with your Flash courses for the next 5 years. Kind of just depends on your current situation. So here's a little HTML5 timeline here to kind of talk about how the technology and the demand for it has evolved. In April of 2010, Steve Jobs released a letter called Thoughts on Flash. That letter had some information in there saying that, hey, why do we rely on Flash? Why do we have to rely on plugins? We should have this web standard that allows us to do all these different things without having to rely on a plugin. We shouldn't have to update a plugin on our machine all the time. We've gotten kind of used to doing updates on our computers, so Windows updates and all of the application updates. Sometimes you log into iTunes and there's another update. It seems like we're getting used to certain types of updates. But I think Steve Jobs was kind of going towards the why do we need to do this? We don't need to do this. If we focus on HTML5, we can kind of get away from relying on plugins. And so that sparked a big discussion and debate, and I think is what was kind of a big movement towards the HTML5. Adobe announced the stop of the Flash mobile player in November of 2011. So Android devices had a Flash mobile player, a Flash plugin that you could install. It was like an app, and then you could view Flash content. It was a little bit buggy, and some stuff worked and didn't work. I think they decided, hey, let's stop putting our efforts into this and let's put our efforts into focusing on an HTML5, because this is where the industry is going and we want to make sure we're heading in that direction. And about 2014 is when the HTML5 specification will be complete. So that's when they'll say, hey, it's finalized, here's how you do everything, here's the official HTML5 manual. That's going to be happening in 2014. So the specification is not complete yet. But in early 2011, developers were given the green light to start using it, to start putting it out there on the web, saying that most of this stuff is not going to change at this point, so it's safe to use. This is a list of tools that currently support some form of HTML5 output. Articulate Storyline is what a lot of people are using right now since they're worried about HTML5. It publishes out to Flash and HTML5. A lot of these things don't support all of the features that they may have supported before with Flash output. Some are better than others, but this is just a list. It's not a comprehensive list, by the way. I know there are other tools and other things that publish out, but these are kind of just the industry leaders and the things that people kind of hear and know about more. Yeah, Storyline we've used for some HTML5 output. It does pretty well with the basic stuff. Screens, it does drag and drops pretty well. Videos come in pretty well. But it's got its bugs along with all these other programs. Adobe Captivate 6, which is actually what I'm using for this recording right now, publishes out to HTML5. Does pretty well. It's got an HTML5 tracker window, which is good. So you can open up that window and you can see what is and what isn't supported in your different types of output. So you can say, okay, what is it not going to work when I publish for HTML5 compared to Flash? So that's a great feature, that program. Flash CS6 publishes out to HTML5 some things. There's a lot of stuff that's not supported, but it's going in that direction. So I think as the versions progress and the updates come out, we'll see better and better functionality there. Dreamweaver, which is a web development tool, has a lot of built-in things, which is really good. It has some good layout templates in there. It's even got some kind of course builder that's kind of focusing on e-learning courses that I've not had a chance to play with, but I hear it works pretty well. And obviously that output is just web. It's a web development tool, so it's of course going to be HTML. Adobe Edge allows you to create animations and little movies. It's got a timeline that looks a lot like After Effects, Adobe After Effects, and you can insert objects, graphics, you can draw vector graphics on the screen, you can manipulate them, move them around the screen, turn them around, twist them, and it outputs it to HTML5, which is really nice. So you'll hit save, it'll save you an Adobe Edge project file, and it also saves an HTML file. It'll create all the JavaScript things you need, it'll create everything you need. So it's actually very nice if you wanted to animate a logo or something. Pretty simple, animate some text and some graphics. It saves it right to HTML5. You can insert that into your course or even use that as a base for your course, so it's really nice. Claro is an e-learning development tool. It's a web-based tool. It does pretty good HTML5 output. Adobe InDesign has some HTML output options. And then Lectora and Toolbook actually are two tools that have always used HTML5 to output. I've never really heavily relied on Flash. People are moving towards those tools, back towards those tools, which is interesting because it seems like people are moving away from them to get more functionality with some of the Flash-based tools, but now they're moving back towards them because they don't want to rely on Flash anymore. Like I said, there's many more tools out there that do this. I think the industry is moving that direction, so pretty much every e-learning tool provider is going to provide some kind of support. One thing that's missing on this list is Articulate Presenter, which I know is sometime this summer, I believe, is releasing their latest version of their e-learning presenter tool, which publishes to HTML5. My assumption is that publishing will be a lot similar to the way that Storyline publishes. So now you might be saying, wait, what about the browser issues? I hear this doesn't work on every browser, and that's correct. You have to ask yourself, what browser are we using in my organization, and will it work there? If we're using Internet Explorer versus Chrome versus Firefox versus Safari. Some elements of HTML5 are supported in some browsers and not supported in other browsers. And even within one browser, some functions aren't supported with this version of this browser compared to this version of the browser. So you kind of need to do an audit of your organization. Find the oldest version that your learners will be using. So you need to find out the browser type and the browser version that your learners will be using, so you know what will and will not work for them. A great website you can use is called HTML5test.com. So I'd encourage each of you to open that up at at home and at work using different browsers, and you'll get a score. Out of 500 points, your browser will get a score, and that score is related to how many HTML5 features that your current browser supports. Okay, so I'm going to try opening up the HTML5test.com website and the different browsers and kind of see what score I get. First, we'll start with Safari. Open that up. I see it get 319 points out of 500 with some bonus points. That's good. In Chrome, I see we get 468 points out of 500. The bonus of 13. Pretty good. Firefox, 394 points, which is very good, and 10 bonus points. I can tell you that number has changed significantly since I updated the newest version of Firefox. And Internet Explorer comes in last with 138 points, with 5 bonus points. The cool thing is that if you do scroll down on these websites, it will show you exactly what is supported and what's not supported, so you can get some further details that way. So along with the HTML5 compatibility test, there is a browser support by feature website called Can I Use, which is really nice. It lists all the different features of HTML5. You can click on them and it shows you what browsers and what versions support that. And there's also some information, some additional information there. So if something is supported or isn't supported, and there's additional bits about it that's provided there. By the way, all of this information, it changes all the time. Since the specification is still being complete, these browsers are still adding functionality in. There's new versions of browsers coming out all the time. So this changes all the time. So you always want to search online for the latest version of this information. That's why I suggest bookmarking these websites and visiting them often instead of just kind of gathering information at one point and holding on to it. Now, one big thing about HTML5, people say, video is so much easier. We don't have to rely on Flash and plugins and making sure people have certain versions of Flash on their machine and taking forever to load the video. Yeah, there's a video tag that looks like this. It's very simple. It's just like the image tag. It's got the video, put what size you'd like it, and then preload. You're trying it to load the video before the person clicks play, so it's nice and ready when they do click play. And controls. That puts video controls on there, so play and pause and seek bar, volume controls, full screen, that kind of stuff. Cool, easy, let's do that. One thing you do have to know is that certain browsers support certain video file types. So if your solution is to take all of your Flash courses, pump them out into videos, and post those videos, you still need to be paying attention to your browsers and your browser versions to know what video file types are supported. So that quick and easy line of code to publish your video actually ends up looking more like this once you put in all the code and fallbacks for the different browsers and the different file types. For example, for iPads, you have to have that iPad file version on top of the list of any other versions. So this is all stuff that your developers and programmers that will have to read up on and know to prevent problems. So the greatest thing about HTML5 when it comes to e-learning, in my opinion, is responsive design. HTML5 and CSS3 allows you to create one set of code, one course that'll display differently on different devices. So as you can see here in the little graphics, I can create one course that then is rendered differently depending on the width of the device I'm viewing it on, which is really exciting. This is a built-in feature of CSS3, which is a part of HTML5, as I mentioned before. It's a new way of thinking. It uses CSS media queries. So basically what it's doing is it detects the device of your current browser window, and it says, hey, based on this width, we're going to display different content. So I can show you an example of that here. So here's an example of Kineo's responsive framework. We like to call it ADAPT. It uses CSS3 media queries to determine the device width, and then it displays your course a little bit differently depending on the width of the device. So if we look at it here, this is the layout that you would have on a laptop or desktop computer. If I take in the width of the browser a little bit, this is how it would be displayed on a tablet, perhaps. And then if I take it in even more, this is a display you would get for a cell phone. So it's the same set of content. You got one place the updates, and one place your content sits, but it's displayed differently depending on the width of your device, which is very nice. So as we dig into the course here, you can see it still scales differently depending on what device you're using, things of that nature. Here we have another example of a responsive course. This one has a little bit more content in it. So as you can see, it's kind of your typical e-learning course layout here with graphics and text that changes on click. You've got some graphics here with some different rollover states based on where you are. We've even got a little slider here where you can slide across an image and manipulate it that way. And the great thing about this is, like the other example, it's responsive. So let's say you're viewing it on smaller. So you get the same course, it just behaves slightly differently based on the device you're using. Alright, what about legacy content? Can I easily convert my Flash to HTML5? It's a question we get a lot of. The simple answer is no. There currently aren't any tools right now that will take a complicated interactive Flash interaction and turn it into HTML5 very easily. Most of the ones I've seen out there, they either just strip a lot of things down and they pull out all the functionality, so essentially you have a video, or they just don't do anything really. A lot of the plugins I've seen that they've added to Flash that allow you to publish out to HTML5, they take old content and publish to HTML5, they just don't work that well. If you're looking to take a Flash video, a little animation of somebody walking or something of that nature, and converting it to a video, that's fine. Those converters will do a good job of that. But anything that's interactive where you have the user clicking on things or hovering over things or entering input, there currently aren't any tools in the market that'll easily convert that over. So your two options are to recreate that content or to just publish out videos of that content. Those are the two options. So in summary, can you easily convert your Flash courses to HTML5? No. There's not a good way to do that. That's why a lot of people are trying to future-proof their learning right now by using some of the newer tools that publish to both Flash and HTML. So when and if that big push to get rid of the Flash plugin in browsers happens, we're all ready for it. If you have any questions, you can contact me. My information's on the screen here with my email address and my Twitter handle. Feel free to throw me any questions your way. I'm pretty busy, but I'll answer everyone. Also on the Kineo website, we have some more information about HTML5. We've got some reports and some white papers we've done with some survey results. If they're supporting, bring your own device to work kind of mentality, where you'll allow anyone to bring whatever tablet or phone in, and hope to support that device. Thank you. If you have any questions, once again, feel free to email me.